Welcome to another edition of, yes, Mr. Nailsin Sunday Comics. Well, unfortunately, I will not be reading you a comic book this time around because I want to talk about something that happened in the past week. If you follow a lot of videos that talk about comic books, by now you probably are familiar with the YouTuber Diversity&Comics. There are people that love his videos like me, and then there are people who hate him and wish he would get the Thanos treatment and fade away. Boy, it's a long saga, and I suggest you go to the Diversity&Comics channel on YouTube to get the full story. There's a lot of people calling him all kinds of names, this phobe and that phobe, and this ist and that ist, none of which are true, and I offer up his entire channel as evidence. If you're not going to do that, then you're dishonest. And a lot of these critics, I would think, if any of them, most of them probably only, watched maybe a minute or two here and there, and they gang up on him because he's a threat to them. His arguments he made are sound, and they don't have an answer for it. And when you're losing an argument, often people will just call you Hitler, and that's that. Now, this argument that is represented by this guy's channel is just a microcosm of things that go on in life today, in the political divide between everybody and social justice warriors, which is an ironic title for this hard left group because they're not very sociable. They do not pursue justice. I mean, they call it justice, but it ends up being theft. And they're not much of warriors. They don't really fight much except when they're in large groups of masked thugs, most notably Antifa, where they sucker punch people using bats and crowbars and the like. So, and it's interesting because this little event I will use as a thing that describes these people and how they project, where you have something like Antifa, which are extremely fascist, yet they're supposed to be anti-fascist. So they fight fascism with fascism. Here we have the case of Mark Waid, who would probably describe himself as a liberal. He is not. He is hard left and just a miserable, lonely man for whatever reason. It's not my problem. I don't care. And whatever sympathies I might have had are gone. He says he hates bullies, but he is a bully. So here we go again, projecting. And his case against Diversity&Comics was that I think primarily was that he was transphobic. This is because he got in an argument with transgendered artists. The three that I know of that he discussed would be Mags Passaggio, who engages in very violent language on Twitter and throughout the comic books Mags writes. Then there's Sophie Campbell, who again tweeted out that she wishes she had a magic button that would kill all the members of the GOP. And there wasn't much interaction between Sophie Campbell and Diversity&Comics, but that statement was brought up. This is seen as evidence that he hates transgender people. He hates the statements, which any rational person would. Just because they're transgender doesn't mean you give them special treatment when they can just go around and threaten people. And last but certainly not least was Michelle Perez, who has a comic book called The Pervert from Image Comics. And what she did was defame the man. She lied about his military record. Oh, by the way, yes, he's a war veteran. And in the eyes of Michelle Perez, this makes him a crypto-fascist because all veterans, in her words, are crypto-fascists. So she said he was dishonorably discharged, said he was a deadbeat dad, all this type of stuff. It is actionable, but unfortunately, Michelle Perez is broke. Best that Diversity&Comics could have gotten out of a lawsuit is probably the flea-infested carpet from Michelle's humble abode. So he didn't bother. Now, these are the examples of the arguments he had with people who are transgender, and this is seen as evidence that he is a transphobe, and so therefore any kind of slander used against him is fair game in the war against nasty people and bullies who hurt marginalized peoples. And so Mark Waid is your hero, and he's there with his Captain America shield to protect you against a guy who does videos on YouTube with reading comic books on his lap that he tapes with his phone until it gets too hot and dies. That's pretty much it. If he doesn't like the comic, sometimes he tears it up and stuff. It's for laughs, but he makes very good points, and that's the problem. The ultimate problem here is he's won the argument. He's won it several times. They challenged him to make a comic of his own. He did it. They challenged him to have an audience. He does. His YouTube channel has quite, I think, over 60,000, I believe, at this point. The massive turnout for his comic book, which is called Jawbreakers Lost Souls. He did a Indiegogo campaign, initially to raise $5,000. At the end of the initial campaign, it was nearly $200,000. Afterwards, with Indiegogo, it has the in-demand phase where it becomes kind of a storefront. It went way over 200,000, and it will probably reach 300,000 by this Sunday. I believe this is it is Sunday. It's the 13th, and so because people can still order it and go to that page, which I encourage you to do. I did. Initially, there was a move from comic book stores saying they would not carry the book, even if their customers asked for it to order it. They wouldn't order it. And which is a stupid business model. But when you drink the SJW Kool-Aid, you don't just drink it, you swim in it and often drown in it. So things don't make sense. Certainly not the logic and rationale of business, and that where you deny your customer base. Kind of like not wanting to bake a cake for a certain couple. And so here you go with this, all based on the erroneous claims that he's some alt-right Nazi guy. He isn't. You go through his videos and you try to prove that. You can't. Boy, if he's this white supremacist man, what's he doing with a Jewish child and a Muslim child? Yes, these are some brief details about his family and the children that he is raising, and that's all we need to know, because even if I knew more, I would not reveal it, because people are crazy out there, and they get all upset at this man over his opinions over comic books. That's the world we live in. But it was a strange turn of events and a sad turn of events for someone of Mark Waid's position to do this. Mark Waid was a successful comic book writer. He had some good work in the 90s. He was the writer for Kingdom Come, the Alex Ross photorealistic painted spectacular, and he did some good runs on The Flash and Captain America in the 90s. Not so much today. So maybe that has something to do with it, because his real response to Diversity in Comics should have been to write the best damn Doctor Strange comic you've ever read. But unfortunately, he probably can't. And that might be part of the problem too. But Doctor Strange is supposed to be his next project with Marvel, but after pulling a stunt like this where he got on Facebook and went on a rant and tirade against Antarctic Press. Antarctic Press had agreed to publish the Jawbreakers graphic novel and distribute it to stores. And then a couple of days later, they relented. Oh, why? They said, we're not going to do it. Well, they were harassed nonstop, and the guy who shook the hornet's nest was Mark Waid. Now, perhaps should stipulate allegedly, but Mark Waid went on this tirade on Facebook, and after doing so, suddenly his Facebook is deleted. So, boy, that doesn't look good for Mark. Why would you do that if the truth is on your side? Well, you wouldn't. So, but meanwhile, Antarctic Press said, yeah, he did call us, but there was no harassment. Yeah, they just want to get out of it and try to hope everyone forgets they were ever involved. They're not capable, apparently, of dealing with harassment of this nature. And there you go. Now, there is a case here that is actionable, and apparently Diversity in Comics will be checking in with the Federal Trade Commission on this, because basically you have a guy using his weight as a writer for Marvel, bullying and putting harassment and pressure on a smaller publisher, and doing this to try to block a guy for publishing his book. Market should always decide. It did decide, and he won the argument. Again, Mark, you should have done a better book. But you know you can't. And so here he is. He's done the very tactic of being the bully that he claims he hates, based on erroneous slander against this man. So a sad turn of events and a sad end to a guy who should just do his superhero comics that people enjoyed. Instead, he has to preach things and slay his phantom enemies. So, well, good luck with that, Mark. But if it were up to me, yes, he would be fired from the Doctor Strange book because, you know, Marvel doesn't need the headache and they don't need the stench. So that's what they should have done. In the meantime, do go to the Indiegogo page for Jawbreakers. It's fantastic art by John Malin and Brett Smith. So for $25, you will get a signed copy of the Jawbreakers comic book. And for $50, you get the comic book in a high-quality print. I believe that one, the poster, will be with art by Ethan Van Sciver of DC Comics Flash and Green Lantern fame. And now there's the option for $100. I wasn't there before. For $100, you get a comic book, 2 posters, and a pinup poster of the sexy girl in the story. Come on, it's a fun comic book. And a T-shirt. Good Lord. I believe that will be like is that the splash page or the cover? I can't remember which, of the gorgeous art of John Malin and Brett Smith. Will be on the T-shirt. So wowie, look at all the goodies you get. And plus, yeah, I would say it's for a good cause. Boy, it's really a sad set of circumstances that I had to join a goddamn cause just to buy a comic book. But that's what pushed me. I was just going to buy it when it came out, like a normal comic book or book on the shelf or through my comic book store. And that would be that. But no, the initial response to him was, of course, comic book stores saying, we will not order this book and you will not be able to get it through us and all that crap. It was just that stupid idiot attitude that pushed me to plunk down my money to the Indiegogo campaign, which I did. So I'll be getting my comic book, and you should too. But it's just, you got to join the movement to get a comic book. But that's the sad state of affairs that we are in. And the really sad part about it is that it's utterly unnecessary. There's no reason to do all this grief and harm and slander of people over nothing, just over their own issues, whatever they may be. I can't care anymore. So head over to the Indiegogo page. The link description is below, and get yourself a copy of Jawbreakers, The Lost Souls. It's not there's a lot of politics in all of this, of political thinking and philosophy, if you will, fights and what have you. But this story is just about a bunch of superpowered G.I. Joe types battling a giant King Kong-like gorilla, not the real King Kong, in the jungle. So, I don't think that's controversial at all. It just sounds like fun. I guess it's too much fun for today's sensitive world, but there it is. Go and get your copy today. So there you go. The link description will be in below. And also down below, the link description will have links to my mini stores, which have plenty of other goodies just for you. Plus, a link to my podcast, The Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. New episodes every Wednesday and Saturday. Do check it out. The current episode features the best of Night Knight and Sun King, my audio plays, parodies of Batman and Superman. So there's some comic book style endeavors for you. So again, thanks for watching and listening. Please subscribe, and we'll do it again next time. Bye-bye.